Okay, looks like we're live. All right. Okay,
Awesome.
so let's get it started.
Yay.
Welcome, guys, to another Success Series webinar. Today, I have two awesome guests. They are super, super great, insightful industry veterans, and we are so lucky to have them because today we will be talking about complex things that will be impacting the market in the coming days. And we will be covering a lot of topics from is the market going to crash to should you be cutting down your spending and so on. So it's going to be an exciting day. Bear with us, and we can cover a lot of topics. So let's get going. Keri, do you want to start first and introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Keri Josephson. I am one of the property Joes, Josephson, here in Houston, Texas. And we are with a brokerage named Keller Williams Memorial. And we've got roughly 700 agents, and we are always the number one team in the brokerage. Joe?
Awesome. My name is Joe Diosana. I'm the other Joe. I'm the first Joe, I guess. I started back in 2006, and then Keri, after a great career in sales management, came on about 5 years ago. And his first foray into real estate started with Hurricane Harvey. Yay for him.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's great. So, guys, I think we can get it started, and we want to talk about a little bit about um, the downturn, the things that are happening in the market, if there is a downturn, if there is a crash, and then what should realtors really do if they're thinking that well, the market is going to calm down, if the market is going to cool down, and then where do we go from there, right? So first of all, what's your take? Are we going to see a crash?
Joe, you want to go first?
Sure. throw me to the wolves. Yay.
Uh-huh.
All right. So in terms of the recession, I mean, there's a lot of conversation about affordability, about inflation, interest rates, all of that. Just to gain some perspective here, when my father bought our house that we grew up, it was at 16%. You had to have 20% down. When I bought in 96, my roughly was 8.25%. Right. So some of my perspective is kind of skewed. People are always going to need a place to live regardless. And there's going to be a time where, hey, we've got to get used to the new norm and then make the right decision for our family and move forward. So in terms of that concern is there's always going to be movement in terms of buying and selling homes. So that's number one. Number two, this is the first time, and both of us had the opportunity to go to an economic forecast with Ted Jones. He's with Stewart Title, and he does a lot of conversations, but he said this is the first recession that we have a lot of jobs. Most recessions you have the recession plus no jobs, right? So this is really the first time where there is a lot of jobs. So there's good positivity around that. And then also we still have the lack of inventory. You can't build as many houses as you need to, so you still have the demand. And so in many of our places across the country, we still may not have as many multiple offers, but we still have multiple offers, and we still have people coming in.
Yeah, that's great. So I think another thing that we should be addressing is that last time when there was a recession, there was a lot of things happening, right? There was a lot of mortgage default swaps. There was a lot of issues with the financial system, which we are not really seeing that here now. So it does look like it's going to be a lot healthier. I mean, recessions will come. We've seen tons of recessions, but the idea is just to make sure we're prepared for it. Sure, we're going to see a bit of a cool down. Sure, there's a lot of money in the stock market. That money usually has some velocity, right? So we would see that money moving less around because, well, there's some of that money fading away from the market, right? But
Right.
At the same time, we're not going to see people getting homeless or like paying really, really high mortgage rates like last time. I think last time we had people paying tens of thousands of dollars and they had no income. So I think that was funneling some of that. So that's awesome. So now I guess the key question is this, and I will tell you a little story. So I used to do a lot of business in Vancouver, Canada, and I was one of the top teams there. In 2017 and 2016, we saw the market shifting. And that was happening locally in Vancouver because we had some policies going around and so on. But the key thing was I saw that the market is kind of calming down a little bit and cooling down. And it was like, okay, what do we do now? Do we just stop our advertising and then kind of go easy on it and then see what's happening, which is the default thing that you do as a new agent, right? So that's your default crisis mode. You're like, okay, what's feeding me today? Let's just do that. What's feeding the future, long-term goals, long-term things that you wanted to do? Let's pause that a little bit, see what's happening. So now the key question is this: if you're going back to those years, and 1 year after I saw the outcome, right? I had no clients. I had to just start from scratch. I had to double down advertising. I had to go start building relationships. It was really tough because during that year, I just pulled the plug and I was like, okay, well, let's just see how things go and so on. So I think, tell us, and you've seen this multiple times, right? In different scenarios, beginning of COVID, the hurricane and so on. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, one thing I will say is, there's a saying that's politics are local, right? And so you've got to know, oh, sorry, I'm trying to mute my text so you've got to know what's going on in your own market. I don't care what they're saying nationwide, worldwide about real estate. You've got to know what's going on with your clients and know what's going on in your market from a affordability perspective, how, what the demand is and so on. And so the right thing to do is first know what's going on, and then second, take those actions. And the thing is not a lot changes. Price of gas may go up, still need a house. Price of gas may go down, still need a house. And so, we still continue doing, it's not rocket science. We continue to do the same things we did before to be successful, but we're more educated on what's going on. So when we get questions, we're the expert on a transaction. We need to be an expert on what's going on in our market as well. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think you nailed it in the head here. You need to know exactly what's going on in your local market, in like micro level things, the things that are happening in your market. I think sometimes we are thinking that, okay, the national average price is going up or down. Like that's very broad, right? That's you're talking like 300 million people, and you're talking like from North Carolina to New York to like Los Angeles to mid Texas. Like it's very different in every market, right? So yes, maybe the average price is going down because no one is buying that $10 million home in Beverly Hills anymore. But are they really not buying that 200K home in Texas? So I think that's the key difference here, and knowing what's happening locally in that market and educating your buyers and sellers is key. Like just telling them, hey, this is where the market is heading. Sure, maybe it's not as crazy as last year, but look, the average price is still going up, right? We're still getting a lot of whatever it is for that market, right? And I think that's the key that we see missing. So now tell me like what you did in those years when the market, for whatever reason, went down. What is the first thing that you guys did, and how did you survive that market?
Yeah, awesome. So one of the things that just so we can bring some understanding to kind of what we do in our background is we've made the decision to completely give our business over to our past clients and our business partners. And what that looks like is we're high touch. We do it through phone calls, through handwritten notes, through face-to-face visits with little gifts, and through client events where we invite our entire people. Because one of the principles is if you work with somebody who knows, likes, and loves you, they're going to send you business. And usually the quality of the referral is higher than a lead. So a lead is someone I met. And I don't know about you guys, but when I meet somebody who knocks on my door, I have a high level of suspicion. But if I'm calling my friend who refers another friend, there's a high amount of trust there. So it's easier to grow the business. So that's our kind of our background and how we've done it. And we've done 100%, literally 100% by referral since 2009. So it's been a long road for us.
That's a big number. 100% referrals.
Yeah, I mean, we were able to serve 91 families last year, and this is completely by referral. We don't advertise. We literally don't. We
Okay.
work with our favorite people and this and that. So getting back to your question, your original question. So as a background, the original question is, what do we do?
Mm-hmm.
How do
Mm-hmm.
we handle challenges that happen? And challenges will always happen, no matter what you come in. So our challenges, let me give you some big ones, right? We had the Hurricane Harvey. So our entire city shut down, real estate wise, for 2 months, starting in
2
September.
months. That's a
Yes,
that's a
sir.
big time. So that's
Yes,
almost
sir.
like the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, well, yeah, it was a pandemic. So 60 days, right? So Keri, that's when Keri started, right? Then, if you guys remember, we had the Texas freeze, right? So that was about a week, right? Crazy. We had before that was a pandemic, then the freeze, and then now we have this new thing with affordability, inflation rates, and all of that stuff. Well, in each of those times, it was super important to reconnect with our clients because they're getting messaging from all sources, social and friends, and their opinion is getting formed by all these other, like, really high emotional negative vibe. And you have to bring the voice of reason and your knowledge about the market. During the pandemic, when we finally found out that we could work, I mean, right at shutdown, I had 9 transactions, right? And they all closed. Right? 2 of which were international, and the sellers had to go to the US Embassy to get notarized, which also shut down. So it was like, I don't know how we're going to do this, but we will do this and we will get it through. So there's in the pandemic, both Keri and I started this happy hour on Zoom, and we invited all our friends, and we stumbled through the technology. We figured out this thing called StreamYard. We were able to channel through all the different channels, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook, on both profiles and LinkedIn. And we were able to, every 6 o'clock, we thought the pandemic was going to last, the shutdown was going to last 2 weeks. It ended up being 61 days. So 61 days, we did a happy hour. And kind of the message is to bring a little bit of normalcy to our clientele and just say, hey, everything's going to be good. Let's have a toast. What are you drinking? And, it got to, like, within about 30 days in, we started bringing on different guest speakers to talk about what they're doing at home or how they're coping, and then what's super insightful things they can do with their family to bring some sense of normalcy as well. It was such a good time. In addition, we kept calling people, hey, do you need anything? Is there anything that we can help with? We reached out, we wrote notes. We really engaged with people on a human, normal, let's just be normal people in an attitude of service. And just, I don't know how, sometimes we get into sales and we kind of lose our mind,
Yeah. So
it's about
tell me about this. You talked about relationships. So
yeah.
what is relationships, and how do you actually work relationships? Like, and I know it's a big topic, but like, give me like 3 things that you guys do that's super different from everyone else in the industry, that is focused on relationships. So what are those 3 things?
Keri.
Wow. The minute when you said it's super different than everybody, sometimes I don't think the answer is in the super difference, but our group, the people we interact with, fall into one of 3 categories. They're either people that know, like, and trust us, that we enjoy their companionship, that we've worked with in the past. They've done a transaction with us, and maybe they turn into somebody like group number 1. Like group number 2, they've done a transaction, or group number 3, they're under contract, or we're working on getting something under contract for them at the time. And during this entire time, we just follow really a plan. And the plan is, we see them face to face. We bring them a little gift from time to time. If I'm in your neighborhood, I would pop by your home, and either drop it off face to face, or I'd call you and say, hey, I left you a little something on the front porch. Hope you enjoy the summer. And we do events. When during COVID, when we couldn't do events, we would do live streams. with folks on different topics. I mean, the happy hour was one of them. The other, we've done some other things as well. But I think that the secret is when you ask for what's different, is because a lot of people work their database. I think what's different is that we keep track of our numbers consistently. We don't allow that self-talk to either make us think things are too rosy or things are too gloomy. Like I've had real estate agents already tell me, "Oh my gosh, this market is crazy. It's falling apart." And literally, this is my best month I've ever had in real estate. And so it's real easy for me to think, "Oh my gosh, it's better than it really is." Somewhere in there.
Keri is being humble. He's closing 15 families this month in May. 15.
That's awesome.
Right?
That's great.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you.
So
Yeah,
it's
no, it is.
like
Yeah,
he's being super humble about it. But it really is when you develop the deepness and relationships and loyalty, and really the finesse is just being there for people. So we do again calls. I call in just to check in. Hey, this is Joe. Calling to check in, see how are you doing, blah, blah, blah. After the call, I write a note, usually based on something that we discussed. And I just repeat the process. And it's just a way for us to really
cool.
stay in touch.
Do you make personal notes about each client, like what they're going through?
Yeah,
what is the next big thing for them, like the son going to college or something?
Exactly right. It all depends on where the conversation goes. I mean, here's another way to think about it. And this is kind of an example. So it's sort of like you're dating someone, right? I mean, when you date somebody, you want to spend time with them, you want to write them a note, you want to send them a little something, not
make you feel special, right?
Sure. Yeah. And people want to feel special, and we want to serve them, and we want and because we're doing this approach, which always really is a good approach with people, is that you're serving them. It comes from a different posture and an intention, and that's our hope and our goal. We're there to serve, and that we're there to help, and we want it to be an enjoyable process.
I think that's a great topic. Like, stop selling and start getting to educating them, helping them, adding value, right? And I think we've seen this with our we've seen this with a lot of our videos too. Like, if it was left to realtors, they would go and they would create this 5-minute video about how great they are. They would get off their Porsches and Lamborghinis, and then they would ride a helicopter and ride the town, and then they would call themselves luxury realtors. I don't know where that word came from. I hate it, but there's a reason that I do, because it's too general, right? It's not really saying anything, and it's not really helping anyone get value out of why they should work with you as an agent, right? So and it's the same thing with email marketing campaigns that they do. Like, they send an email and say open house. I'm like, why do I need to look at this again? Like, thank you for telling me that you have an open house, and I could also see it on the MLS. So what do I do with this, right? Like, I think the key thing is just adding value, right? Giving them something that they can use. They can educate themselves. They can use it to know what's happening in the market, instead of just keep saying, oh, the market is crazy hot or crazy cold. Like, what is it looking like? What is the market like? How are we going to kind of pass through this phase of the market? What are the fundamentals? Can you educate me on like where the interest rates are going, right? Can you educate me on if the sales are actually falling or not in my area? And I think that's something that we always miss. So going back to that 5-minute videos, what we've seen is realtors love those, and they keep posting them, and then their audience is like, give me a 30-second video. I don't need that. Like, I don't need to know what's happening. Just tell me what's happening in the market, right? Like, what's happening really in the market today that would change my life for tomorrow, not like 5 years down the road. I don't want that. No one knows that. But what would it look like in about a month from now, in about 3 to 6 months from now? And I think that's what a lot of real estate agents miss. Yes, you have to show off your brand. Yes, you have to tell that you've sold this home, but the idea is just to really connect and add value, be there for them. I think that's what I'm getting from your conversation here, and I think that's really the key thing about building relationships, right? So how often do you follow up with these people? So let's say you've connected, Sam is a person in your database. You've called me today. What is the next touch point aside from an email?
So, I mean, whether, yeah, okay, so let's say I spoke to Sam today, right? So we either decided, we touched base on something specific or just checked in to make sure everything's fine with Sam. I'll follow up with a note in the next day or two and write him a personal note. I may reference something in the conversation. I may not. It just depends. In my CRM, I'll take note of any specific items that Sam mentioned so I know how to follow up with him in the future. I'm going to pop by his house in the next couple of weeks with a little item of value. And then I'm going to send out an email to the top folks in my database. And it just depends on some folks, you kind of get a sense of frequency of contact. And so those are the folks that I still reach out to, but I may not call them every single time. I may just pop a text or, whatever it is. But I mean, we will consistently follow up. And then the thing that I try to always make sure that they know is I don't care if you're looking to buy or sell. It doesn't make me any difference. If you have a question, let's talk about it, right? And those questions turn into, it's like the whole saying, if somebody asks you how the market is, they don't care how the market is. They want to know what the value of their home is. How's the market in my neighborhood? Not how the market is worldwide. What's the market in my neighborhood? And I mean, those turn into deals. I mean, literally turn into deals. I don't care if it's 2 weeks from now or a year and a half from now, but you've got to keep track of them and follow up with them consistently.
And one of the other things that I found out that is really interesting is sometimes we put our own personal needs into the mix, and that's why people get desperate and they start doing all kind of.
Can you give me an example of that?
Yeah, like, oh my gosh, I haven't had a closing in a month, right? And so then you start shifting into being the crazy salesperson. Hey, do you need to buy a home or all that stuff, right?
Oh yeah.
Instead of the relationship. So what one of our coaches have told us is, you know what, if you're going to get that crazy, then start contacting more people instead of hammering people. Like, just play a game with your mind and say, okay.
So what you're saying is, like, think of it as a funnel and add more people to the funnel on the top.
Correct.
And then you can have some people that are not interested today, some people that are interested, very interested today, some people that are mid-funnel that you would sell them something in 6 months to a year and kind of go from there.
And so you may not be able to predict who they are, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've got one guy that I work with, or I worked with. He's already closed and part of my database, but I worked with him for 2.5 years. He'd have a question, come back, have a question, come back. And, and my response wasn't tied to whether or not he was going to buy a property. It was tied to, I want to serve him and make sure that he's got all the right information. And at some point, the time was right, and we moved forward and got him a great place. He and his kids have a great house now, and he's referred us 2 other deals over the course of the last, 9 months. So,
yeah, the mindset is you can't control the outcome, but you can control your activities, right? So if I'm controlling my activities by being proactive, I'm making my phone calls. I'm committing to 10 phone calls a day, 20 phone calls a day, 30 phone calls a day. I'm committed to 10.
What is the maximum number of phone calls you've done in a day? Tell me.
100.
Always a fun number.
110. 110.
And then 10. But the actual conversation, like, do you sat through and did all this?
About 110. No. I left a message for everyone that didn't answer, and I had about 25 conversations, which yielded 25 notes, handwritten notes after that, and I've got 3 referrals from that.
So what I'm getting from this is, again, a whole concept of a funnel and the importance of a system here, right? So first thing is you got to have a lot of people coming in. Then you got to make notes or leave a mark on their phone somewhere that, hey, I called you, you weren't there. And then for those that you did have a conversation with, you made notes and you followed up the next day or the next time or next week or next year, wherever that would be, right? And then you got into the point of actual contracts. And I think this is what a lot of us miss. So last year we did about 60,000 leads for agents. Well, guess how many of them actually followed up? Less than 20%.
Wow.
And we called them, like, you're like,
send them to us. You can send them all to us. We'll follow up.
So then we called them and said, well, do you want to follow up? They're like, oh, I was at the gym. I was doing this. I was doing that. So I was like, well, okay, we'll give you a system.
Yeah.
We'll do that. But then something else that was interesting as well is like they expect things to work right away. So they're like,
Of course.
I called this guy, he picked up, but he's like, I'm not buying today. Well, what did you expect? You thought like the person that's already ready to buy and they've looked at 10 homes, they would just change realtors or come work with you. That's not going to happen, right? You just have to build your own relationships. You have to be in that long process of creating that personal experience, personal care for that client, so that when the time comes in, they're like, I want to call the property Joes, right? I want to, or I have my cousin that's buying, and then I have to call the property Joes or text them or whatever it is to get there. So
a coach once told me that you've got to have a hunter mindset, but a farmer activity. Like you've got to
that's interesting.
Act like a farmer, but you've got to be like a hunter in your perspective. So sometimes we think both. I want to be a hunter and a hunter on both things right now, and that's not. It's asking of real estate that's not how the industry works. It's relational. You cannot do that. I can be a hunter and very proactive and act between the conversations. I'm going to call 100. I'm going to write 100 notes. That can be very, very direct and proactive. But when I'm with a client, we're having a good time. We're having a good conversation. I'm answering his questions, her questions. Sometimes I have to watch my pace because the personality of the person is different. But then when we're done with, I conclude with that moment in time, I move to the next, and I move to the next. So, trying to build what we call seeds. You're seed planting everywhere, and you're figuring out, where do I really need to till the land? I need to fertilize over here, but not over here, right? So that's all depending upon whether that the relationship blossoms, and then really try to cultivate it, because sometimes you can cultivate really well on one area, and it's always a surprise. I have one client, call him without fail, because he sends me 2 clients a year, and he never calls me back.
There you go.
Some people would give up on them, right? Like, oh no, they don't ever call me back, because they make the relationship about their perspective. If I come from an intention of serving him, hey, let me serve you and your clients or whatever. I know you're busy, no worry. But I was just thinking about you. I do that all the time. Write him a note, send it, pop by his office. He's not there. I just flip him, and give it to the secretary. But he sends me a referral once a year. Come on, once a year for the past 12 years.
And you figured out how he wants to communicate.
Correct.
Right?
That's a good point, Keri.
He wants to receive. He doesn't necessarily want to call you back. He's okay with the phone. Some people need it to be emailed. Some people need to see your stuff on LinkedIn, whatever it is. But you've got to figure it out. And you have to use a variety of things. So you're able to maximize.
Exactly. So you take some people, you email some, you basically phone some, because some people like to phone, right? And it's the key is to just keep being present on top of the sphere of influence, your sphere of influence, the people that know you and trust you, but just keep being on top of that network. I think that's great. So let's say there is a recession happening for whatever reason it's happening. Okay.
It is.
And let's say it's 6 months to a year from now, and you see that happening right now. What would you do if it's a year from now and you see a lot of things happening? What would you do? What is the first thing that you would cut on? And what is the first, spending wise, right? What is the first expense that you would cut? And what is the first 3 things, or what are the first 3 things that you will double down on?
I mean, we can speak from experience on that. I mean, what that literally happened to us during lockdown and COVID. from that perspective, the first thing we did was we had a change in headcount. We lost our executive assistant. We didn't replace him. We just didn't. So, which allowed us to also shut the office down. So we, instead of going to a brick and mortar, we worked from home, but we doubled down on all the marketing activities that were important. And, from making our calls, touching the people that are close to us, making sure we know what's going on with the folks that have sent us the most referrals and really staying close to them. And I'll tell you a mistake we made, or that I made, was, COVID's coming. I'm worried, and we don't know what's going to happen. So I started doing business that I was not familiar with. So I don't do a lot of leases. I don't do a lot of leases. I don't do them. I mean, and so, but they started showing up. Like, I had opportunities to do some leases, and instead of referring them out and focusing on what I do best, I started working leases. And then all of a sudden, all this other business, all
the time in the wood from you, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, for me they do, but I mean, I don't know for everybody. Anyway, but for me, then I had these leases I needed to complete, and then I had all this other opportunity from the activity I was doing. And so that's the thing I would change is I would not have started doing business that I wasn't as familiar with. I would hone in on the things that I'm best at and really, really focus on them personally.
That's really a good point. So you would stay focused. You would not lose your focus, and if an opportunity comes to cut down your costs, which is the closing the office or an expensive talent leaving your team, just take it easy until you figure it out, right? Like, and then you can kind of go from there and kind of see it. And it's interesting. Every time I see a market shift, there's always a lot of so maybe for 2-3 months no one buys or sells, but then there's a lot of buyers now. All of a sudden you just see a ton of new buyers coming into the market, and no one looks for listings anymore, because you get this listing, you get another seller from it. What do you do with it? You just have more open houses to do on the weekend, right? And then no one wants to sell, but there's going to be some really active buyers that would just have saved up the cash. They want to go buy during the downturn. And I think it's always important. So what you said about relationships and follow-ups is that when that time comes in and they're ready to buy and pull the trigger, now you're there. So they can call you, they can be there, so you can do things with them, right? And I think that's
I think the other thing we did that was really helpful to us, and it may be helpful to everybody else, is we didn't we didn't sit around on a call with a bunch of other realtors talk about how bad it was. I mean, we didn't have time for that. We were like, oh my gosh, we have got to call our database, right? We've got to get after it. And I mean, I don't even know if we knew what was going on with everybody, other than a very small peer group of ours, and from a real estate perspective, that is. And so
I think that does make sense. So are you guys still closing the office, or like have you guys opened the office, or what happened to that brick and mortar?
Well, I mean, our brokerage is still there. We were just leasing office space within the office. And so what we found was, I mean, we'll probably go back at some point, but we found that we were pretty successful in doing some of the things that, like I said, I mean, we will hire an executive assistant again, and we're in the process of wanting to do that. But I don't know if it looks like it's going to be an office that we always go to and see each other every day, if it's going to be this whole remote thing that COVID brought to us and all of that. But yeah. So.
That's interesting. So how would you measure? So, and this is an interesting question for you guys. I always ask this. How would you measure success on social media? And I know you guys are big on relationships, but if you could paint a 10-star experience for social media, not 5, 10, what would that look like? And the second question is, what is success meaning to you? Like, how do you measure success
on social media?
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
So, Joe, before you go, let me
Yeah,
just say one thing, and then I know you've
go.
got a whole thing that's important. No, but
I don't have a whole thing.
for me, social media, I mean, some people try to boil the ocean with social media. They want to capture everything. For a lot of times for us, it's really just a way to reinforce those relationships with our database that we already have. And so things like this is important for them to see us out there doing. That they know what we're up to and social media is a great way to share that with them. And go ahead, Joe. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. So yeah, social media, and just to follow on him, for us is an extension of our relationship, right? So we try as best as we can because it can get very much distracting. You know, they say social media is interruptive marketing, and that's true. Like, oh my gosh, I saw the video of a cat. Let me go watch that thing, right? And it can take you down the stream. We spend time just seeing what our clients are doing, saying hello, interacting that way, staying present. Also, we try to give a window into our world, right? So one of the things that we like to do is eat. And so we have a hashtag called Joe Food Tour. And wherever we've eaten, we post that. We're those guys, or at least I am that guy. Keri's brand is more into classic cars, and so he'll show classic cars. And both of us, we like to dress. It's 90 degrees here in Houston, and we're both wearing suits, and that's part of our how we want to present ourselves.
Tell me at least you have the AC on.
Yeah, the AC's on here. Yeah, for sure.
Good.
We both come from corporate, so we have that mentality and that mindset. I like dressing up, and for us, it's important. And we gotta just kind of pull those elements in to what we show on social. So for us, a 10 plus experience on social for us is our interactions with our clients.
So it's that DM, it's the questions, it's the replies, it's all those things, right?
Yep.
And exactly. When we get somebody, you know, what success looks like, when we get somebody, a referral that contacts us and says, hey, so-and-so sent me whatever post it was, and I would love to talk to you more about whatever that was, right? Or they take something we brought to them, say, I don't know, whatever the gift was, and I had this a couple of days or last week. Oh my gosh, I bought my house 3 years ago, and my realtor still stops by with gifts like this. And you had her doing advertising for us. I mean, it was awesome, and we made her happy.
It was very cute. It was you ever see those? It's a 3-pack at Costco's. It's looking forward to catching up. We cut the mustard in real estate, and we relish your referrals. You know, the 3-pack of stuff, and that's nice. That's what
it's just a 3-pack of mustard, relish, and ketchup. That's all it was. It was just a big, and it had a sticker on it with our card, and hey, happy summertime.
And everyone needs those, right? It's like summertime, barbecue season. You need the mustard, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So a little plug on our on Facebook. There's a group called Pop By Results. And I started that about 6 years ago. So if you're on Facebook now, go out to Pop By Results and say that you've been on roomvu when you answer the questions. But it's a whole series of people across the country, mostly realtors, who, hey, I bought 50 of these things. What kind of tag can I put by on it, and when I can give it to my clients? And there's lots of different ideas. If you're not that creative, I'm not creative. I just like to look at what people are doing, create a tag in Canva, put it together. And some people put some really elaborate things, some cute things, inexpensive, just a way, again, to really deepen a relationship by bringing a gift and popping by. And I'll tell you, if you pop by someone's work and it's appropriate, they'll start marching you around the office and say, I want you to meet my realtor. So now you're talking to your client and then 3 or 4 other people. Right. And so now you've expanded your market, and it's organic. It feels natural. It's not salesy. And
That's awesome. All right. So I think we're almost up with our time here. So is there anything else that you want our audience to remember? Like a 1-sentence thing, if you could leave them with, what would it be? Like, what is the one thing you would tell them to do if they could do something about their marketing?
Okay. So I know people are questioning this whole work by referral, work by relationship, whatever. Of my 15 closings this month, 4 of them have done at least 3 properties with me, either them or their family. So that's what I would say. I mean, figure it out, but that's the results are there. So
That's awesome. What about you, Joe?
So for me, don't be afraid, right? Energize your fear, take action, double down on your activities. If you're calling 5 people a day, challenge yourself, go 10, go 15, and start now, because you're the one and you're the voice of reason, right? You're the one that can make sure people are calm, right? Show them the facts, stay out of politics, please. Stay out of politics, and you'll thank us later. Remember, do this, stay consistent for the next, I don't know, 4 to 5 weeks, and you'll reap a reward in Q3 and Q4.
That's awesome. And for me, I would say, like, kind of summary of what you guys said, and that is stay consistent on whatever it is that you're doing, social media, follow up, whatever it is that is winning you more business. And also remember that you have to educate your audience. You have to tell them things that would benefit them. Stop just posting random stuff. Stop posting memes. I know we love memes on social media. It's not, it's funny, it's good, it's nice, but stop talking bad things about the market, but also start adding real value. Tell them what's going on in the market. And I think that is the key thing that we miss a lot. So thank you guys for joining this call, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot. I hope our audience also learned. I see great people in the audience, from Ali Baluchi to Cheryl and Naru. Thank you so much for your comments, and yeah, we'll see you around next in about 2 weeks with another success series. Thank you.
come see us in Houston.
Ciao.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.